Hello, today we're going to be learning about arc length. By the end of the day, I hope you can say I can solve for the arc length of a given measure of a central angle. Now, arc length is the distance from along the arc from one point to the other. Now, we know how to find the arc length of the entire circle because we call that the circumference. So the first thing we can do here is find the circumference. If the radius is 2, then we know 2 pi r is circumference, or 2 times 2, which is 4 pi. That equals the whole circumference. Now, if I want to find the decimal, we can do that because we just do 4 times 3.14, and that gives us 12.56. So right now, we figured out that if I took a measuring tape and went all the way around this circle, assuming I can draw a circle, and follow this line, there we go. That whole thing is 12.56 centimeters around. But I'm not concerned about that whole thing. I want to know the distance here. This distance. And so we know that it's a lot smaller than 12.56. We just don't know right now what it is. Now, this is a proportion of the whole circle. This is 100 out of 360 total degrees. So we can make a proportion 100 degrees out of 360 degrees is equal to the arc length over 12.56. Now, if we want to solve this, we can multiply both sides by 12.56, and so then we have 12.56 times 100 divided by 360. I should show my work up here, multiplying by 12.56, because that's in the denominator here, so that'll cancel out. So that means this right side will just equal the arc length. And so I'm going to take 12.56 times 100, divide that by 360, and I got 3.48 repeating for the arc length. And that's in centimeters. Now, does it make sense if the whole distance around is about 12.5, that it's about 3.5 centimeters here? Yeah, that's pretty reasonable. So that's how we find the arc length. First, you find the circumference. That's what we did here. And then we find the proportion of the circle that's filled up with that. And then we solve for the arc length. Let's try another one. We want to find the arc length from A to B. Now, first, let's find the circumference. The circumference is 2 pi r, or 2 times 5, which is 10 pi. If I use 3.14, that would be 31.4 centimeters. So if the radius is 5, the distance all the way around the circle is 31.4 centimeters. Now again, we're not concerned about the whole circle. We're just concerned about this portion, which is going to be much less than that. If I had to take a guess, I would say it's somewhere around 10, because it's maybe a third of the whole circle. But if I want to find arc length, let's just call arc length x in this one, so we don't have to write out arc length every time. We'd take 140 out of the distance around a whole circle, which is 360. And then we do the arc length, which we're calling x, over the whole circumference, which is 31.4. So now we multiply 31.4 on both sides. Multiply by 31.4. So my x value is going to be 31.4 times 140, enter, and now I'm going to divide that by 360 to get 12.2 centimeters. Now I guessed about 10, so I was a little bit off, but that's 12.2 centimeters here. That's pretty reasonable. Now it says find the arc length of ACB. Now this is tricky because this is not a minor arc anymore. ACB means you start at A, you go around the circle here, keep going until you get to B. Now we know this part of the circle is 70. To find the angle out here, we take 360 minus 70. So this angle is 290 degrees because these both have to add up to 360. All right, now we do everything else the same. It says the radius of the circle is 6 centimeters. So circumference is equal to 2 pi r. So 2 times 6 is 12. So 12 pi centimeters is our circumference. And if I put that into my calculator, I get 37.68 centimeters. So now that we have that taken care of, now we want to do 290 over 360 is equal to my arc length, we'll call it x, over my whole circumference. Now I multiply both sides by this denominator, 37.68. Multiply this side by 37.68. And my arc length will be 37.68 times 290. Divide that by 360. And I have 30.35 centimeters. Now the circumference is about 38 all the way around. And so it makes sense that it's about 30 to go that far, because it's most of the way around the circle. All right, now we're going to switch it up a little bit. It says the measure of an angle of an arc is 110 degrees, and the arc length is 12 centimeters. Let's find the radius of the circle. All right, so we know that this angle is 110 degrees, or this arc is 110, same thing. And we know the arc length, the distance from here to here, is 12 centimeters. We want to find the radius. Well, what we could do is we take this 110, we divide it by 360, and that equals the arc length over the circumference. So the arc length is 12, and then we're going to do that over the circumference. Now in this one thing that a lot of people like to do here is cross multiply and divide. To cross multiply to find the circumference, we multiply across here. So I do 110 times c is equal to 12 times 360, which is 4,320. Now I divide both sides by 110, and I get 39.27 repeating. So now I just found my circumference. If I want to find the radius of my circle, we know that circumference is equal to 2 pi r. So 2 pi times the radius is equal to 39.27. So now we divide both sides by 2. And I have pi times r is 19.63. And then I divide that by pi. And I have a radius is equal to 6.295 centimeters. Now that's kind of a tricky problem. I think you can do it, but you got to think through it. So the first thing we did was we found the circumference, and we found the circumference was 39.27. That's the distance all the way around. And if the arc length or if the circumference is 39.27, we can find the radius by dividing it by 2, then dividing that by pi, and that's what we wanted. All right, let's try this again. Now, if you're doing this at home, try to do this, pause the video, do it at home, see if you can do it, and before looking at my answers. All right, so now the angle is 30 degrees, and this arc length is 20 centimeters. So if that's all we know and we want to find the radius, we know 30 over 360 is going to equal my arc length over my circumference. So now I can cross multiply and divide to get 240. So this is 30 times c is equal to 7,200. Divide both sides by 30, and my circumference is 240 centimeters. All right, so the circumference is 240 centimeters. We know 2 pi r is equal to 240. So then first thing I do is divide by 2. So pi times my radius is equal to 120. 120 divided by 3.14 is 38.2. So my radius is 38.2 centimeters. All right, that is the video on arc length. Hopefully now you feel comfortable with it.